receiving the Cameron Partners report. And have we got all of the changes that we want to make to that? Yeah, so those are the changes. So I'll move that resolution. Does Ref like to second that resolution? Now, I'd like Mary to go through the paper.
I just wanted to clarify the purpose of this paper, and sorry, this was a paper that was written by a committee over email, so it's probably not as clear as it could have been. But the purpose of this report is really just to clarify 4 things. One is, firstly, is that on the 4th of September we are starting an engagement process, not a formal consultation process. So we just wanted to clarify that with everybody. It will not be a consultation process with a preferred option. It's just an initial engagement process. Secondly, that the report aimed to clarify that the decision-making around funding options is not a separate decision-making, it is part of the LTP process. Thirdly, seeking to clarify that all options need and will be considered, not only those identified in the Cameron report, but we're required to fully look at, explore and assess all options. And fourthly, to clarify that before we go out to either the engagement or the consultation or any consultation, we will be coming back to Council with a full plan, including the material that will be going out. So you will have an opportunity to look at that in a briefing session.
Are there any questions? Yep, Yanni?
Thank you. I appreciate that we'll have a briefing session, but one of the problems with briefing sessions is that they're not decision-making meetings. So if there's information that we need to actually either collectively agree to by majority decision, what's the process for doing that? I would feel a lot more comfortable if there was actually the information coming back to Council before it's released, so that we actually, if we have differences of opinion, we have a democratic way of resolving it rather than just at a briefing where we might have 10 different views.
We could certainly do both. So we'll have a briefing and then formally bring it back to a council on, I think the 28th is probably the one before the 4th.
In past, time's gone past, and not to, we need to move forward, but one of the problems has been previously is that we'll get presented with stuff, and by the time we get to sign off on it as council, we're told it's too late to make changes. It's already at the printers, so I just want to make sure that it's really clear that it will come back to us to be signed off, and there will be opportunity to make changes at that stage.
Yep.
The other question I had is, I find it a little bit weird that we're receiving the Cameron Partners report when we haven't received the other reports related to these issues. So why is the Cameron report being received and not the others?
What other reports?
Quarter Mentha and Deloitte.
We've received the Quarter Mentha report a long time ago.
Formerly at Council.
I don't know. Sorry, but the Quarter Mentha report was never going to be on its own sufficient. I'm quite happy if we haven't formally received it to say receive the Quarter Mentha report and the Cameron Partners report.
Yeah, and I think normally it would be attached to the agenda, so
yep.
I think it should be attached so that there is a public record of both those reports on the agenda. Thank you.
Yep, and you can attach that on the online, yep. Sorry, Pauline, David, and then Jimmy.
I just want clarification that when we talk about all options will be considered, does that include options from the community engagement? Because it's not clear in that resolution to me.
You mean when we go out, that the outcome of that engagement be used to inform the development of a draft? Sorry, whereabouts would? Well,
in the options, when it says, that all options will be considered, you stated that a minute ago, but does that include, options from engagement with the community? So,
4.2.
Yeah.
4.2 doesn't refer to that. That's no. CCHL doing that.
In 4.3, request staff to prepare information for the purpose of engaging with the community on the issues and options.
Yeah.
So that actually could imply the issues and options could relate to 4.2 or 4.1 or anything. And I think it needs to be clear that community engagement can feed into options.
And I think
Well,
that
no, but this is for the purpose of community engagement. But 4.5 makes it clear that the outcome of that engagement is used to inform the development of a draft 2015-2025 long-term plan.
I think perhaps what Pauline may be alluding to was what I was going to allude to as well. Mary, you mentioned before about being not limited to the outcomes that were identified by the Cameron Partners report, and I don't really see anything in there that sort of says it's not limited to, and maybe 4.3 needs to be expanded somewhat to say something along the lines of arising from and issues identified by the above Cameron report, but not limited to, or something along those lines.
So through you.
Yeah.
Is the intent is that this initial engagement is going out informing people of the situation and getting input, and that some further options may emerge in the engagement process and in other processes that are happening. And so when the council come to fully consider and assess all the options, there will be a full range of options.
Yeah.
Some that have been identified in the Cameron report, but we are open and hoping other options emerge.
I can't imagine for a minute that
process.
CCHL will only include options from the Cameron Partners report.
No,
they will
no,
consider a range of other options as well. So
I wouldn't want us to be seen to be going out for engagement only on issues that had been identified in the Cameron and Partners report, and I just thought we should have a say.
I think all the issues have been identified by them. What you're saying is we shouldn't be restricting it to the options, right?
Exactly.
So why don't we just engaging with the community on the issues
And options to
and
address
exploring options arising from the financial challenges the council faces,
Yes, yep.
and exploring all options arising from because what we're trying to do is, and I've made it plain that there's an option that will be in the mix when we go out for formal consultation, but it's not an option we've made a decision on. So, and that's all we've done at this stage, is just signal that that there are options before us. And it gives us an opportunity to go out and consult quite broadly. That's the intention. Who was next? Was it Jimmy and then Glenn?
The first question is before the 4.3 go to the consultation, whether all those detailed contents start bring to the council meeting on 4th of September. 4.3. Yes.
4.3 will come on the 28th of August.
Or 28th August. Then 4th of September.
Is the date for the release.
Date.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of the
Then,
discussion document.
so the decision-making day will be on the 28th of August.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. I mean, look,
Okay.
if there were issues that still needed to be tidied up, then the 4th of September is also an ERCAR day, an Earthquake Recovery Committee of the Whole. So there is potential for us to give power to act to the Earthquake Recovery Committee of the Whole,
Yes.
or to meet as an extraordinary meeting of the council on that date, so that we can release it on that date. And look, I've got an emotional attachment to the date. It is the 4th anniversary, and I think people are looking for some strong direction from the council that we're getting on with the job.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Second question, sir. What is the difference between the staff original recommendation for the 4.3 and and this new revised recommendation? Original one is the options arising from the Cameron Partners report, but this one is arising from the financial challenges the council faces. What's the difference?
So
Your
I
point
think-
of
I
view.
asked for
I
that
think
to be
the-
changed.
yes.
So I asked for it
Yeah,
to be
just
changed
wanted-
because I didn't want to restrict it to the options that were in the Cameron Partners report. We didn't want to narrow it down. We want to broaden it out. The council faces financial challenges. That's what we're going to go out with options on, and also explain some of what the options mean. You know, because with every one there's a trade-off. You know, there's a trade-off versus ongoing income versus cash in hand. You know, there are trade-offs every which way, and some of the decisions that we get to make in this area will depend entirely on whether some of the timing and options, ultimate ownership of anchor projects, that will come into it. How much we get back from our insurance, that'll come into it. You know, so there are going to be so many variables, but we do need to have, I think, quite a sophisticated conversation with a public that is under enormous stress. And I want to make that as easy as I possibly can. So I think restricting it to the Cameron Partners report would be a negative. I think it's a positive to say we want to think quite broadly in our discussions with the public, but also explain to them what all the pros and cons are. Not to direct an outcome, not to predetermine our position, but simply to ensure that people have the best possible information so that they can participate in a debate about our way forward as a city. Because at the end of the day, we're not going to make this decision on our own round the table. It'll come back to us to make the decision, but I want the people of Christchurch to fully understand what the choices are.
Okay, last question.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Last question is, what is the timing and the sequence between the 4.2 and the 4.3, which means whether after the presentation from the CCHL presented to the council, then those the information as part of the reference information to give the staff to prepare 4.3, the one of the options, or yes, or before.
Right. So because it's a community engagement process rather than a formal consultation process, an engagement process is more like a conversation that will go backwards and forwards with communities. So we will, as more information comes to light during the engagement process, we will feed that in to the public and that debate. It's not like a formal consultation where you start it with a document with a proposal and a preferred option, and that's what you have to stick throughout the consultation. The community engagement is more as different ideas emerge from the discussion with the community, they will keep on being debated by the community. So if CCHL bring in some new ideas, they will then go out to the community to be discussed with the community.
But that's part of
Yep.
4.3.
Yep, and it will be to and through, and then it will be come back to the council to look and fully assess all the options, and that at that stage they will need to assess every option based on their cost and benefit, on their link with the community outcomes, on the basis of community views, and on the basis of their other impact on the council's financial sustainability, and then go out with a proposal to the community again as part of the LTP.
And there are two other things that need to happen in this as part of this, and one's going to kind of morph into the other. But we are required by law now with the local government amendment that's just been passed to have a significance and engagement policy concluded by the 1st of December. So it's actually quite a useful way to have a public engagement process as a sort of a lead-in to that. And secondly, we need to start the work on the representation review, which we've been talking about as a council as a much more bottom-up approach, where communities actually identify themselves, identify their assets, look to see what other communities they connect with in order to think about a planning environment, and that will be their, hopefully, if all goes to plan, that will become their ward boundaries as well. And getting communities to think about who they are and who they connect with and what their assets are is a much more powerful way to move to participatory planning than anything that I've ever seen before. So I'm hoping that we're going to get a really good outcome on several levels. Glenn.
Thank you. I've got two questions. The first is about 4.2, where it says releasing capital. I know that we have talked about optimising assets, so that's those two aren't the same for me. So I just wonder about the language that's used there. I find that for me, releasing capital is more narrow than optimising assets. Have I got that right? And does that set this down a certain path?
Can I maybe make a comment there? I think options for releasing capital include the optimisation, because I think the Cameron Partners report was quite broad in that respect. At the end of the day, any optimisation, if you don't sell down any assets, will still hopefully result in some capital being able to come out of the companies.
Just to follow from that, though, I mean, I'm no economist or anything, but for instance, increasing dividend doesn't sound the same as releasing capital to me, unless I've got that wrong. And that would be one of the options that we would look at.
I think it would broadly be within the same ballpark. Releasing dividend means that you're not putting that dividend back into the capital of the company, for example. You're releasing it out to the council.
And it's the same with debt. So debt's also another option.
Okay, yeah. My second question is about the 4.3, and actually we were both trying to remember all the words in the Cameron Partners report, but really that goes down a certain path where the kind of prior assumptions about our ratepayer base and how we're going to respond. So in 4.3, when it says all options, can that include looking at possibilities over a ratepayer base and a taxpayer based response?
Yes, and at the same time as engaging with communities and getting their views back, we will be doing some in-house work ourselves. It's really looking at the demographic changes and the different financial scenarios. So the things will be going on in parallel so that councillors can get all the information around that, the community views as well as our own analysis.
Just my rationale, I hope you think I'm being reasonably sincere, because this was declared a national disaster, hence my question over that it's about a bit of both. So that's...
Yep. Any other questions? Yanni?
I think for me, one of the really important things that pieces of work, and certainly in the Cameron report, and I think even wider, is that we actually don't have a vision for the city. So until we know what it is that we actually want to do, it's very hard to talk about what money we need and how we're going to fund things. So I just wonder whether as part of this there needs to be a sort of additional resolution that ties in the idea of what sort of city do we want to live in and what is the future of our city. Because until we answer that basic question, I think I don't want to accept that the government's blueprint or the business as usual, the skirt, like for like is the right approach. But I think it would be really good to engage with our community about what is the future of our city and what are the values that we see as being important. When we had that breakaway retreat, there was some work done. How is that coming back to us in any sort of coherent?
The intention is to include that as the framework. And I tried to set that out in my comments when we released the Cameron Partners report about the vision for the city. But, so there will be, it will be, the report itself, the discussion document is to try and frame people's attention around a vision for the future of the city. And that we will discuss with people. But when I talk to people about the kind of future that I think we can have just by dint of where we are and what we are, people get quite excited. So I think that this is a great opportunity to talk about the future of the city as a whole, very much so.
My question from me is, between now and when we do our long-term plan and when we do that engagement, we're probably spending maybe 200 million. So what short-term, is there going to be, as part of this report coming back to council on the 28th, can we identify some short-term options to actually reduce spending or freeze spending so that we can actually have a really genuine conversation? I'm worried that in the time between when we go up for consultation and when we get the feedback, we actually are committing to a lot of projects that we actually may not be able to, that the community might think that we shouldn't be doing, and we don't have much room to play around with.
But we did the annual plan, so it's the long-term plan that this will feed into. And this is absolutely the right time to be talking to our community. And I'd much rather be talking to our community in an informal, engaged way rather than the formal consultation process, which requires us to adopt positions. I think that it's a very good time to be having that conversation as we go through activity management plans and the long-term planning process and the lead up to the draft plan going out. Yeah. We're going to get a very good feedback from our community about what their priorities are.
Yeah, but I guess I was more worried about those more immediate things like the 150 million on a new Metro Sports, like the money that's been spent on the new library, like the money that's been spent on the transport projects.
Well, we have agreed as part of this whole process to talk to central government about timing and ownership issues in relation to that, but that is not going to happen before the general election, I can tell you that now.
Can I just ask that it's 4 o'clock, I think we've been over and over and over this, and I think we're all in a position where we can vote one way or the other. I'm just getting very tired of re-litigating and rediscussing issues that I think we've been over many, many times before.
I know, but this is a public forum, and I just think that I'm going to have to go. So I've got some Thai principals waiting to see me upstairs. So Paul.
I tend to agree with Theani with the fact of a vision for the city, but I think the vision for the city is much bigger than just the blueprint. It's much bigger than just the infrastructure and the road repairs. They are certainly part of it. I will be supporting this, and I agree with Ali. We do need to get on with it. We've had this in front of us for quite a while now, and all these things we've got in our resolution actually are good and will actually lead us down the right path to actually get a good outcome, so I'm going to be supporting it.
Andrew?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to Glenn's point around the clause 4.2. And the Cameron report talks about the architecture of Commercial Co, or CCHL as it currently is, and optimising and restructuring. And I don't see any harm in putting some of that language into 4.2 just to, again, broaden that so that it's understood to look at dividends, structure and capital release, because capital release I think in most people's language would mean release of equity, release of sell down, reducing the value of the organisation, the company that we hold, whereas a dividend stream would be something that would be seen quite differently than that. And informally there have been conversations around release of dividends from the companies in different ways that could change our position. And the tax position would come into that, of course, as well. But I'd be quite keen, unless there's a good legal reason why, I'd be quite keen just to broaden that a little bit.
I'm happy to amend it. It means the same thing. So for releasing capital / optimising assets, are you happy with that, Raf? Okay. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say...
We separate. Because I'm concerned with 4.2, whether we have any kind of pre-assumption or predetermination, we have to, releasing the capital optimizing the assets. Because 4.3 should be cover everything, my personal view. This is my concern. Because while staff will prepare the 4.3.
Look, the paper from CCHL may come a lot later. It's not going to be here in time for the 28th of August. Well, it might be, I don't know. But we're not guaranteeing
my view should be
it.
timing is 4.2 is earlier. is earlier than 4.3.
Well, look,
am I right?
I'm not going to accept that we vote for that separately. I'm just going to put the motion and you vote against it. That's probably the
I
easiest
prefer,
way.
because the process principle, I agree. But the 4.2, I'm just concerned whether have a predetermination or pre-assumption. This is my concern.
All right, we'll deal
We
with
can
4.2.
separate
Okay,
as a
we'll deal with
base.
4.2 separately. I'm sorry
Yeah.
if I'm sounding irritated, but I am.
Okay.
We will put all of the motion otherwise, other than 4.6, and I'll put that. Yanni?
I don't want to hold it up any longer than it needs to, but just in terms of 4.4, I think what I heard you say was that that engagement will also be used to inform the discussions with the government over the cost share and the blueprint. Is that correct? And is it possible?
No, I didn't say that. I said that we would be commencing discussion with the government, but we wouldn't be doing that until after the election.
Yeah, so I just wanted this community engagement to be able to inform us with those discussions. Is that possible?
So that you're saying that we should wait until the community engagement is concluded before we talk to the government?
It seems logical that if you're having a discussion about what you can afford and what you can do, that part of that information goes into the biggest deal we've signed in the history of the city, which is
That
the
will be
cost share.
made clear in the discussion document, but
Okay, that's fine.
I don't want to wait until December to start any discussions. So, anyway, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. It's carried, and I'll put the second part. It'll be move the mayor, seconded Raf Manji. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
And can you record? Thank you. So that is carried. So we now move on